Right. Hello and welcome, Liam. It's really, really nice to spend the time with you. I actually might also change our view, at least for me, but I think we're good. Yeah, we're here, People Partner Plan, we made it. And I was very excited when we started talking about, well, we had sessions together at Serious Work.
Mhm.
Then we had a few exchanges on the Serious Work platform. But I guess first and foremost, I for those who don't know you, I'll just give a brief introduction because and congratulations again, you started a new
Thank you very much.
because you're now officially at Serious Work, and I think it's since 2 months that you started.
Yeah, just been a month now. So yeah, starting my second month here.
Amazing. Because the headline, and I really looked up your LinkedIn profile again, says Lego obsessed educator, and that's how I know you. I was excited to see that you started as director of learning and innovation, now at Serious Work, and it's a full-time role, and there's lots of exciting things to come and to do for you. And I guess my link to Serious Work was the training with actually, yeah, beginning of the year, where I also met Helen, is part of the Young People Index. And I was hooked when I then saw the education link and your core topic. And I really wanted to know more, and hence the session today to learn more about Lego Serious Play. What has it to do with education? How can it help schools and educational institutions, and how can it obviously help young people and those who use the workshops. And that's over to you. Maybe just share a bit about yourself, what you're up to, and yeah.
Yeah, great. I mean, thanks for taking the time to have me on and chat to me. Yeah, I'm Liam. As you said, I have just recently joined Serious Work just over a month ago. Perhaps I'll get onto that in just a second. My background, I guess, to put me into context, I'm a teacher, so I've been a teacher for 15 years. I've taught all over the world, so I've been very, very fortunate in my teaching journey. It's taken me starting in London. I've been to Paris teaching there, spent 6 years in Singapore teaching at an international school there, and more recently a return back to the UK kind of post-COVID, and I've been teaching at a school here in Cheltenham. So I've taught across a whole range of different contexts and countries. So I feel very fortunate to have had a broad experience of education. My connection really with Serious Work and Lego Serious Play is that during lockdown in Singapore locked down very tight, and I went on what was called a cruise to nowhere. It was the only way you could get off the island. You kind of got on a cruise ship and you just went around the island, which was a bit of a bonkers thing to do, but we all went a bit stir crazy. And while on that cruise to nowhere, I took a online course in Lego Serious Play. It's something I'd always wanted to do. I'd always been interested in. My formative experience in education, I've always used Lego as a tool, whether that's through kind of teaching students to program with robotics using the Spike programs or Mindstorm, or whether it was through teaching kids how to iterate and design using blocks in classes. So I've always used Lego as a teaching aid. I was always excited at what Lego Serious Play involved and the opportunities that might throw up. And then based on that kind of formative experience 3 years ago on a boat, I really brought that into my practice. Started using Lego Serious Play in schools in all sorts of different contexts. I immediately saw the transferable nature of the process across a whole different range of educational applications. And yeah, wherever I've used it, it's been very, very popular. And as a result of that, I was kind of encouraged to document my kind of journey of using Lego Serious Play, which led to me creating and writing a book on Lego Serious Play in education. And off the back of that, I've just started my role now at Serious Work, where I'll be trying to develop the education wing, if you like, of our program, and trying to now increase the access to the method across educators and learners in a whole range of different contexts. And that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Nice. And I guess that's a good shout out again as well, because you wrote a book. I mean, you've said a lot of things which actually also are new to me. I knew that you were in Singapore. I didn't know that you were on a cruise ship, and that's where you started.
Incredible. A bonkers story.
Perfect use of time. And that's where because I have your book, and I've joined a few of your courses, and I'm trying to see if I can share my screen, because I think that would be interesting for people to see, because it's called Build Better Learning Using the Lego Serious Play Method in Education, and it came out this year, didn't it? It was just this year.
Yeah. So it's a fairly recent publication. I was writing it for just over a year, and then earlier this year we kind of published it, and it's I mean, it's kind of the book itself is kind of split into two parts. So I guess the first half is really being a teacher or being an educator. I kind of recognize a couple of things. One, firstly, teachers can be quite rightly cynical about new initiatives. I think if you work in education, there's always something new coming in. And I think one of the real challenges for education as a whole is to work out where change is needed, where it adds value, and making sure the change is kind of appropriate in a context. So the first half of this book, I suppose, is really dedicated to legitimizing and validating Lego Serious Play in a way that I would have valued if I was being introduced to the method as a teacher or as a kind of staff body. So the first half of the book really digs deep into pedagogy and trying to justify its value, and to link it to what we know about good teaching and learning. So it talks a little bit about playful learning principles and constructivism, and how the method itself encourages a lot of what we call kind of 21st century or soft skills. So that first half is really about validation. And then the second half of the book really focuses more on sharing my journey of how I've looked to use and apply the method across a range of different contexts. And it's kind of written as an instructional book. So it's full of case studies, examples, techniques. The intention was if you pick the book up, you could learn about the method and hopefully feel that you're ready to kind of apply it in your classroom by the end of the book, hopefully. So that's a little bit of a plug, I guess, for the book itself, and its intention.
It's perfect. It's I used it actually for my own my son's school, right? So well, because I'm not a teacher. I'm using, well, I do team building with adults, and obviously Lego Serious Play being a method for team building, that's the reason why I started applying it. And then obviously we came to know each other. I got your book and was like, you know what, I'll just go and go to my son's school and just use a few of your ideas. And frankly, the teachers were like very open and was like, of course, please come. And because for them it was also kind of like exploring a new thing, and also having the chance, which I noticed, and they told me actually that they had a chance to also observe the children from a more like an outsider view. They were obviously participating, but they had a chance, actually, because I was facilitating it, they had a chance to see how the children interact. And because it's a lot about team building, they find it curious to see how they communicate with each other, how the teams actually are matched, and they come together and solving that problem or challenge that I gave them. And I think it was, for me, just also a nice way of, actually there's so much, like, yes, I can do it with adults, even though I'm not a teacher. There's so much things you can actually do with Lego, which I never thought of. And I guess even the children didn't think like that would be something you could do, right? So they
great to hear it's useful.
It's super useful, and we can learn from them. So what was your I guess on the book side of things as well, because that's I'm curious always about how you then structure it and how you frankly also, yeah, I guess your process and your approach to writing the book. Was there any learnings, anything that surprised you throughout the process?
Yeah, I mean, there was I think the book itself, or the writing of it was an incredible learning opportunity and learning experience. I think when I was writing it, it was almost a challenge to further my understanding of the method itself. So I found it fascinating to kind of dig deep into why it's such a useful tool for learning, why Lego Serious Play was so useful in the context of learning environment. So um, it was fascinating to unpack the kind of foundational principles, of pedagogy upon which kind of Lego Serious Play is built. It was also really interesting to kind of connect the dots with my kind of broader understanding of learning and education, and to identify things that perhaps weren't explicit in the creation of Lego Serious Play that add huge value to education. So there's some amazing things that happen when you bring Lego Serious Play into a classroom. I mean, just to mention a couple of them, I guess one of them is seeing how it can create or provide a framework upon which learners can tell stories about things that typically we really struggle to socialize and articulate. So in the book, I write about the difference between kind of tacit and explicit knowledge, and how everyone has these tacit understandings, these things that they kind of know, but they rarely, if ever, get asked to elaborate on or explain to someone else. So one of the examples I will always use when I'm trying to explain this to someone is someone might ask you, what is love? And if you ask someone, do you know what love is? Everyone will always answer yes, almost universally. But if you ask them to explain it, they'll often kind of really struggle to actually tell people what it is, in their experience. So these experiential learning things, these experiential learning opportunities, we often know things tacitly, we struggle to make them explicit. What Lego Serious Play does is, because you're able to create a physical manifestation, if you like, of these thoughts, you model your thoughts through bricks, you can then use that to hang a narrative off. So what you end up with is a situation where people can socialize these tacit understandings. And that's a really powerful thing to be able to do for learners in a classroom, because not only does it allow people to kind of metacognitively make concrete their own thinking, and to better understand what they think about often quite complex and nuanced topics, but that also provides, through that same framework, something that the person next to you can learn from.
Yeah.
So it socializes that learning in a way that allows not only you to better understand it as the learner who's telling a story, but also your peers to understand it and learn from and build into their own knowledge structures. So it's an amazing phenomenon. And I think also linked to that is the fact that because you're encouraging learners to build models, there's this other phenomenon we observe, which we call kind of decoupling, which is where, because people take their ideas from here and build them in front of them, there is a distance between the model and the person. And that kind of abstraction, in our experience, tends to give learners a kind of permission to be more candid and to talk about things as the idea separated from themselves. And that, again, can have some really interesting outcomes in a learning environment. So a good example would be, in my previous school, we challenged students to talk about their relationships with social media. Now, this is always like a quite powder keg topic, because they immediately feel like you're trying to trap them. If you tell a kid we're going to talk about social media, they'll immediately go, "Well, you want us to stop using it, so I'm going to go guarded." Through Lego Serious Play, we encourage them to talk about it in the third person through their models. So they were able to say what they really thought without kind of personally attaching themselves to their thinking.
And I guess also the receiving, the next level of receiving feedback, right? So because you're not, like, when you give them feedback or conversation about that model that they are sharing,
Yeah.
it's not, you're not criticizing the thought and the opinion of that person, but you're just saying, oh, interesting. I find, and I guess that's what we're obviously learning as facilitators. The curious one for me is the yellow one that stands out.
Yeah.
How did you, what made you choose this one and stuff like that? So, and that is not, you're not criticizing the opinion about social media and whatever that person says. And I love that. And you're absolutely right. It's the decoupling, because you don't feel, I guess it's your thought, but it's easy to then talk about it and share. I guess maybe let's also, I don't want to go political, but the educational system itself, and maybe based on your experience, because now you have the new role with Serious Work. What can you see? What are the main challenges that maybe young people have at the moment, being part of a and maybe also challenges that that institutions have, right? So because obviously it's both sides. But is there anything that you noticed stands out, and where Lego Serious Play comes into play?
So the problems with education or the challenges. How long you got? No, I think there's some interesting things in education happening at the moment. I think the first thing to say, and I think it's really important to acknowledge, is that education is full of very talented, hardworking people at every level who every day make a significant positive impact on people. And no one goes into education because they're thinking about their kind of professional progress. Really, it's not, you're never going to be rich. It is genuinely a calling, I think, and there is something about teaching and being involved in kind of forming other people's, kind of young people's lives and kind of futures that is amazing. And I think that is reflective of the people who go into it and the talents that they have. I think there are issues with education systems or challenges within the systems of education, which I think make it very difficult sometimes for teachers, institutions to maybe do the really good work that they know they should be doing or know they would like to do more of. And I think those challenges, there's a big range. I mean, education is a complex system, right? And I think challenges of student welfare and well-being, I think, have emerged as something which needs to be prioritized within education. That certainly emerged as a result of COVID, and the hangover of COVID is real for students, particularly certain age demographics, the kind of preteens who are now coming into their teenage lives, and the impact of the lack of social and emotional learning experiences that they were able to have for those 2 years is really kind of visible within how they interact with their peers, their in some cases their socio-emotional intelligence or their levels of maturity because of that lack of experience. I think that's definitely a challenge, and I think schools are trying to rise to that, but at the same time acknowledging that at the moment they're not necessarily equipped or qualified to do everything that they need to do, or perhaps they're not as well resourced as they need to be to dedicate the time they need to wellbeing programs to be successful. I think there's still
Lego Serious Play, I guess, trying to, because I know this is one of your topics, but to try and come around, is that where you would see Lego Serious Play and the work that you're doing, setting up the new projects, can help those schools going forward?
So I think one of the areas where Lego Serious Play can have a huge impact on schools is within student wellbeing. And I think the reason for that is that Lego Serious Play as a method is best when participants are able to bring things to the table and are able to share their experiences around a topic, and then kind of use their collective creativity and experiences around an idea to build shared understandings and shared models. And I think when we talk about issues of well-being, every student has their own challenges, their own kind of things that they face, that they are looking to overcome. But what you'll often find within a context is that a lot of other students in that area might be facing similar challenges or can empathize with the struggles that individuals might be facing. So in a legacy serious play learning experience, individuals are able to share and articulate their experiences and their thinking around issues associated with well-being, and then together they can kind of work on what responses to that might look like, or reflect on how collectively they might look to address that. And it also is incredibly powerful for schools then to be able to take a look at those stories and say, well, wow, actually, when we focus on what we thought were the issues within well-being at our organization, either we know what they are and this validates it, or actually maybe we're miles off. Maybe we're not actually focusing on the things that we need to be focusing on. So I think it helps and supports students, a bit like we were talking about earlier before this call, to actually articulate something and to share a challenge that you're facing. Makes it easier to reflect on and deal with that challenge because you're able to get it out there. And like we were talking about earlier with the decoupling effect of Lego Serious Play, it makes it a safe environment to do that. But then from a school's perspective, being able to take that kind of balcony view of, okay, so these are the things that our students are, that this is what's on their mind right now. So how can we adapt our program or be responsive with our wellbeing programs to make sure that we are better meeting the needs of our students?
And I guess, and I love that, because there's so much like help that can be helpful for a teacher, right? So I guess and I want to really highlight here the community as that we have. I'm a user, but you essentially leading it on Serious Work, because that's where you share those best practices. Obviously, there's the book, and I know, I mean, I'm not a teacher, but I can see from my children that it's hard for a teacher to put something else on top of it, because the curriculum is already pretty packed that you need to complete in X weeks, right? So I totally know that if you just say, oh, why don't you do a Lego Serious Play on top, they would be like, thanks, I already struggle to put all the other things in there. But I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, there's the wonderful community, and there's really simple, it's just for education, there's no distraction, it's just for teachers and people in education who can use certain tips and tricks based on, I mean, I've used, don't know if it was, but I think I used also based on your book, because I knew that I had 60 minutes and I could only do something in 60 minutes. So I was really looking like, what can I do in 60 minutes? What's actually really helpful as an introduction like that. And so I guess from that point of view, let's just, I'm just popping up my screen just for people to see it as well, that there are a few things to share here, because that's the community. And I a bit busy for people, but there's so many really helpful, and there's webinars. You do webinars on a regular basis, right?
That's right. Yeah. So this is our community platform at SERIOUSWORK that we call Circle, and within Circle there is a subgroup dedicated just for educators, which you're kind of sharing now. And yeah, exactly like you say, what we do through here is we run regular webinars, share articles that might be useful. There's a resource section where we kind of put up things like session plans and learning resources that can help teachers actually use the process with their students. So our kind of belief really is that Lego Serious Play is a transferable process, a method that can be used in all sorts of different contexts. And through our trainings, our kind of Circle learning community platform, what we're really hoping to do is to make it as accessible and as easy to try and implement in people's contexts as possible. So yeah, the Circle platform is absolutely free to join. There's no paywalls or anything for people to go through if they are interested in Lego Serious Play. It's a fantastic place to start. There's also, as you've been part of, kind of community members who will share their stories, experiences, ask questions, and then through our kind of training associate network and other kind of community members, actually, we create forums, or we facilitate forums where people can share ideas, give advice, whatever it might be that might help people to better use the process.
That's great. And I guess there's also the I guess worth mentioning, like, it's not just down to the teachers, right? So like, and maybe I'm close to the topic, but I've done it as a parent, right? So it's not,
yep.
I would probably also say it's not just it doesn't need to be only done and started and kicked off from the school or from teachers, but
Yeah.
it needs to be brought in from people who are not familiar with the curriculum necessarily, but they can work together and collaborate and just help each other. And there's professionals, of course, as well, so who can do that and run a, I don't know, festival type thing or workshop and stuff like that. So
absolutely. And some of our most interesting work in schools have been kind of community based. So bringing in parents, staff, and pupils into the same room and to explore topics that are, resonate with all of them, yeah. So that we can start to get a kind of a better understanding of what the school community feels about issues. I mean, it takes a village to raise a child, right? So to, promoting student voice is terrific at that, but also activating and engaging school communities. If that's something that a school is looking to do, then running Lego Serious Play workshops in an evening and inviting parents to come and build with their kids and actually explore, really, really important topics in the context of schools can be a great way of doing that. And the same with staff professional development as well. Again, some of the really nice work that we've done has looked at things like professional learning, coaching, mentoring, how Lego Serious Play can unlock, kind of open conversations around some of those topics that link to staff training and professional development.
Yeah, I totally agree. I guess, I mean, I know for a fact that we could continue, because we already had a pre-chat, which was longer than expected because we were just talking and couldn't stop. I would like to close with with a few questions, but I always try and ask those that I work with and interview. And one is around partnerships, because obviously that's one of the topics that I like to encourage more and encourage more collaboration. And question one is, if you could choose any organization or person, no matter where, no matter like if you know that person or not, in the world, who would you like to collaborate with or work with?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, working in education and being a kind of teacher who's worked in secondary schools, I was a graduate of the Teach First program. I don't know if you're familiar with Teach First. That was my route into teaching. I'm a huge advocate for the work that they've done in the education space and that they continue to do, and the influence and impact that they continue to have on making sure that, education is accessible to all, or good education is accessible to all, regardless of their kind of socioeconomic background. And for me, seeing the work they continue to do, the research they continue to do, and the impact they continue to have, I would love to explore how Lego Serious Play might be able to contribute and add value to their work. So I think, as a graduate of that program, I'd be really excited to explore opportunities to collaborate with Teach First.
No, it sounds like a great synergy and match. And then next question is, I sometimes switch between best advice or worst advice. You can choose which one. Best advice or worst advice you've ever been given. What was that? Can you think of something?
So I think the best advice I've ever been given, my mentor in Singapore, a lady called Ellie, who I respect immensely, through what she did, through everything that she did, she always promoted do good work, with the idea that even if the good work might not be aligned to what you're looking to do right there and then, you never know when that good work will pay dividends. So she would often talk about how she would do the right thing with other people to help them meet their goals and objectives, because in the long term that might pay back and actually help them to achieve what they were looking to do as well. And it's something I've always tried to bring into my practice and my approach, to always try and do good work, for good work's sake, and hope that the world will pay back in the future. So I think, yeah, that has always stuck with me as something that I think is a really good mantra, also a good kind of mantra for living a good and fulfilling professional life, I think.
100%. 100%. And I hope, yeah, I guess that's one of the examples why we are together and why we're doing this. And I hope the internet is actually staying stable, because you're a bit like in my but one thing, yeah, this is the reason why we are coming together as well, and I think it's a lovely advice. And maybe on that note, I would also like to mention a bit of a shout out to the Young People Index, because we both know Helen and the Young People Index, and I think that's also one which works really well for exactly that new next generation and those young people. There's probably a few things coming in the future, you never know. But yeah, for those who haven't heard of it, the Young People Index is a wonderful way of helping young people to assess and take a next step in their start of the career, as one example. Great. I think, I mean, that was a lot, and it was, I know for people who are new to Lego Serious Play or Lego, it might be like, oh, I still don't know what you mean and how does it work. There's lots of videos and content out there, and especially in the community that Liam is leading. So do look it up, join. It's for free. There's no paywall or any of that, as you said. And if you're just a little bit curious, then just take another 10 minutes or 15 minutes and have a look. And I'm looking forward to anything that's coming. I think there will be something coming, and something will be there in the future, and why we met in this context. So, and yeah, full support for everything you do, especially in the new role at Serious Work.
Great. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It's been very enjoyable.
Thank you for taking time, and thanks for everyone who's listening. We'll put everything into the comments, and speak soon.